Sometimes people want to write about their lives and they think that they have an interesting story, and it may not be that interesting. Um, or maybe they want to tell the story from the time they were born all the way up until present day. And unfortunately, that's not the best way to tell a story. So, what I normally tell people, and I know it sounds harsh, is that if you are not famous, if you have not made $1 million doing something, then people don't really care about your story. This is what we're going to do. I'm going to start off. I'm going to tell you a bit about myself. And then, like I said, if you have a question, maybe you're thinking about writing a book one day, or maybe you have written a book and you need some help with getting that book out there. You want people to not just buy the book, you want them to know who you are. We're going to talk a lot about that as well. So I'm gonna just go ahead and get started and tell you a bit about myself, because y'all are probably like, who is this crazy woman doing all this talking? All right, so my name is Dr. Rhonda M. Lawson. I am the owner of Meet the World Image Solutions, which is a publicity and literary services company. I am stationed, I said stationed because I used to be in the Army. I was in the Army for, believe it or not, 23 years. And it was an adventure, but it was just time to go. I just needed to do some other things in life, and I'm really enjoying myself doing these other things in life. And one of these things that I'm doing is Meet the World Image Solutions. I am a 24-time published author, and I knew what it was like to try to get your book out there, try to get publicity for the book, try to get people to read your book, but then they didn't know who you were. Or you tried to go and do a book signing at a local bookstore and they wouldn't accept your book, or they would only buy them on consignment, but then they never told you if they sold the book. I think I still have some free books out there from over the years where the bookstore said, we'll sell them on consignment and we'll send you the money if we sell the books. The problem is you don't always hear back from these people, or sometimes the books are just sitting there and nobody knows that they're there, and you're not keeping track, especially if you're a new author. You're not keeping track of everybody who has your book. So I wanted to be able to start a platform to help people to get publicity for their books. So that's the reason why I started Meet the World Image Solutions. So I have two arms to the company. I have publicity and I have literary services. The literary services is really after my own heart. And what I mean by that is, as I told you, I'm a 24-time published author. I love writing. And I know that there are people out there who want to write, but they don't know where to get started. Or they think they have a great story, and they probably do have a great story, but they can't really get all of the pieces together, or maybe they're not that strong a writer, or maybe they're not strong with grammar. So I wanted to be able to help people like that. There are so many people out there, and I've said it a million times. There are people who are great storytellers, but maybe they're not great writers. And then there are some people who are great writers, and they're not necessarily great storytellers. And believe it or not, there is a difference. Here's an example. Have you ever met somebody who told a heck of a story? They always had you laughing. They could tell a story to keep you engaged, and you're wondering what's going to happen next. But then when when they try to write this down, you're like, ugh, what did you say there? And sometimes it happens. That means that there are people who are great storytellers, but not necessarily great writers. I have read some books out there that were really interesting stories, but because the author was not a strong writer, it didn't come across as well as it could have. Or maybe the reader put the book down. And I've met many readers. I'm like that myself. If the book doesn't grab me within the first 50 pages, I'm probably going to put it down. I don't like, they call it DNF, did not finish. I don't like not finishing a book, but sometimes I just can't get through it. Or I try to muscle through it and then I get to the end thinking that it's going to get better and it never gets better. And if that's happened to you before, just let me know in the chat, because I know that's happened to me quite a bit. So, like I said, I wanted to be able to help these authors who honestly want to tell a good story. Maybe it's a fiction story, maybe it's maybe it's a nonfiction story, a memoir where they want to talk about their life. And I want to be able to help them to tell that story. Now, I will tell you this about people who say that they want to write about their lives. Unfortunately, sometimes people want to write about their lives and they think that they have an interesting story, and it may not be that interesting. Um, or maybe they want to tell the story from the time they were born all the way up until present day. And unfortunately, that's not the best way to tell a story. So, what I normally tell people, and I know it sounds harsh, is that if you are not famous, if you have not made $1 million doing something, then people don't really care about your story. However, what they do care about is your message. And if you really think about your message and how your life story compares to that message, now you might have something. So what I tell people to do is think about, what do you want to get across? For instance, maybe I mentioned something about $1 million. Maybe you do want to tell people how you made $1 million selling t-shirts. For instance, Damon John. I mean, many of us know Damon John. He's one of the sharks on Shark Tank. He wrote a book about how he started FUBU. He didn't have to start from the very beginning all the way up until present day. He talked about how he started FUBU and how, and his business ventures that kind of failed up until he got to that point. That's what we want to know. We want to know how this man became a millionaire, selling jeans and t-shirts, because that's what a lot of people are doing now. So they want to know if they can do the same thing that Damon John did. So that's what he wrote about. So think about that when you decide that you want to tell your story. I mean, I have a comment on here on YouTube that says most biographies are boring, and they're boring because we're not grabbing you. We think that our story is more interesting than it really is. But if we really think about that message and what we want to get across and how certain aspects of our life apply to that message, then you'll be able to grab hold of them. Then you'll be able to grab their attention. So think about that when you get ready to write your memoir. I know it's like a gut punch for somebody to tell you that your story is not interesting, but sadly, your story is probably not interesting. We got to be real. But I'll tell you, for me, I probably will never write my life story. What I like to do is I like to take aspects of my life and I make them into a fiction story. So I'm not going to tell you which parts of the stories are me and which aren't, because y'all, I know, especially when I wrote my first book, Cheating in the Next Room, y'all really were trying to figure out if I was Andrea. You were trying to figure out if I was Alexis. I wasn't any of those people. I took little pieces of my life and applied them to different characters in the book. But that's the way I like to tell my story. So this is one of my books right here. This is an anthology called A New Renaissance. And in this book, there's 12 different authors in here. But the story that I wrote was called Buried Alive. I've never been buried alive, but I write by the what if factor. So one of my biggest fears is to be buried alive. I mean, we've heard about these things happening to people where maybe they were in a deep sleep, or maybe they were in a coma, or something happened and people thought they were dead and then they were buried. So I always wondered what would happen if somebody woke up and found that they were buried alive. And that I wrote about that in this book, but I didn't want it to just be about that. So I also thought about some other things. I wanted to incorporate New Orleans in it because I'm from New Orleans. I wanted to incorporate some of my experiences with relationships. And so all of that is in this one story. I told you I love listening to audiobooks, but I also I can't show you my phone because I'm using it for TikTok right now. But I also like ebooks. So sometimes like when I'm getting my nails done or something, I'll my nail tech actually has a little phone stand you can put your phone on. So I set it on a stand and I'll read my ebooks while I'm getting my nails done. Or if I'm bored, let's say like I don't know, like I'm the passenger instead of the driver, I might read a book. Or if I'm at the DMV and y'all know how it is at the DMV, you go sit there a minute. Sometimes I'll pull out my phone and I'll read a book. So so I think having your books handy is a good idea. Plus you can carry so many more books. Nobody's carrying around 5 physical books with them, but I can carry around 10 or 15 books on my Kindle reader, which is actually my phone. So that helps me to get through books. Sometimes if I'm reading a book, I like to read to the end of the chapter because it helps me to not lose my place in the book. So I'll read to the end of the chapter so I know when I pick that book up again, I can go to chapter 5 or chapter 6. So, but the best way that I get through books is, like I said, audiobooks. If I know I'm going to take a power walk, and sometimes that's my motivation for taking a walk, I'll put my earphones on, my Beats by Dre earphones, and then I have my little Samsung watch right here, and I'll go for a walk, and I'll walk for probably an hour, maybe an hour and a half, and all that time I'm listening to audiobooks. And it's so serious. When I get to a certain spot, I automatically think about what I was listening to when I passed that spot. So that's the way I get through books. So I hope that answered your question. I think that was what you were asking. But yeah, so I like to read books, like I said, in different formats. Um, and I have a question for you guys. And let me know, what kind of books do you like? What kind of books do you like to read? I am, yes, I'm a doctor. I do have a doctorate, but it doesn't mean that I only want to read educational books. I love a good biography, but I also love a good mystery book. I'm not a huge fan of romance. But I'll read a romance book, but I'm not a huge fan of romance. For me, I would rather read contemporary fiction. I like to read about life. So mystery books, suspense books, books about life, about adventure. Those are the types of books I like to read. So let me know what you guys think. Okay, I have another question here from YouTube. My friend says audiobooks and real books are a different experience. Well, I would say that, yeah, they can be a different experience. And I'll tell you this. I love James Patterson's books. The Alex Cross series. I love his books. But if you read, I've read his books and I've listened to them. And what's really cool when you listen to his books, he has sound effects in his books. I remember reading this book where there was a boat that was about to explode, and when it exploded, they played the explosion sound, and I was like, like that. So yeah, it can be a different experience. But I would also say if you're a person who you kind of lose focus, maybe physical reading might not be the best for you. Maybe listening to the book. I like to listen to books because it keeps me engaged, especially when I'm driving. However, I have a friend who says that she doesn't like audiobooks because they put her to sleep. But I can't just sit like this and listen to an audiobook. I do need to be doing something. So if I'm working on something, if I'm driving, if I'm exercising, it keeps my mind off of what I'm doing. So that's the way I like to read, or that's the way I like to listen to audiobooks. But yeah, to just sit there, no, I can't do it. Now I do sometimes if I know I can't sleep. Sometimes I'll set my audiobook reader to, let's say, 30 minutes, and I'll listen to the book. I'm getting comfortable, and I might fall asleep, but it'll turn off, so I'm not missing the entire story. Like when I wake up, the book is over and I'm like, damn it. No, so I don't do that. But yes, there is a difference between reading a book and listening to the book, but it really kind of depends on you and what type of learner you are. There are some people, if you explain something to them, they won't get it. But if they actually get to pick it, hold it, and read it and take in the information for themselves, all of a sudden they get it just like that. So it really just depends on the type of reader you are and the type of learner you are.